Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 164 of the Laravel News Podcast. We're super glad to be back on the show. It has been a long week. It has been a really long week, super busy. And so what better way to spend our Saturday night than jumping on a podcast and talking about some Laravel stuff, right? Michael, I know it's been a busy week for you too, but for different reasons. You've got a teething 19-month-old, I think.
Yeah, she's teething. She's I don't know. It's like some combination of teething and I don't
Just
know,
give her
maybe,
rum,
yeah.
right? Isn't that what they say? Put rub
tempted.
rum on her
I was
gums or
tempted.
something. Yeah,
I was tempted last night.
yeah.
It's like
She's
4 nights
anything
in a
like
row. So she's
she's
kind of
anything like her dad. She's gonna love that stuff.
I'm gonna love the rum. Wait, you mean give it to her or give it to me?
Oh, I mean give it. Both and is a good idea. Yeah.
It's it's like a combination of teething, and they're like the canines, so the sharp ones.
Yes,
and,
the Sharpies.
The Liv is like her older brother was, where that like when the teeth come through, it's like all of them come at once, not scattered. And I'm not sure if like doing it over 4 consecutive weeks or whatever is better or worse than having all the teeth come at once.
It's like you can endure 1 week of extreme misery or 4 weeks of almost extreme misery. Yeah,
and suffering.
Less extreme misery. Yeah, right.
And I think she's got like some combination of teething and then maybe night terrors, because the last 4 nights she's woken up and like she wants nothing to do with me. If Ree hands me Liv, she's like, I'm out, I need you to take her. She just screams and she like arches her back and flies backwards, and it's
take her for a ride in that Tesla, man.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
No.
So
no Tesla yet, right?
No Tesla yet. No. Who knows? But
who knows?
Yeah, it's been a challenging few nights, and just like, and then we had the daylight saving spring back. No, fall back last night.
Fall back. Yep.
We fell back. So, and then Eli woke up at like, I don't know, 6 o'clock. Well, it was earlier than that, and he's like, my tummy hurts, I'm hungry. I'm like, that's because you didn't eat dinner last night. And so
we know that game well.
Yeah, so he woke up and he's like, my tummy hurts, I need, so then he had 2 bowls of cereal, and then he went back to bed.
Good man.
For like 20 minutes.
Yes.
So I brought him out to the lounge room. I said, you sit there and you watch the iPad. I'm going over there to sleep for another. I managed to get another hour and a half, 2 hours, which was okay. So, and
that's my kind of dude.
He's
getting up in the middle of the night, eating 2 bowls of cereal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm all about that.
So he's good. He's kind of can sit there by himself and just go about his business. I woke up at one point and he like jumped up off the couch. So he's potty trained now. So he's just jumped off the couch. He's like pulling his pants down and just sitting on the potty. He's like, Dad, I need a sticker. Living room. Okay, no worries. So we give him a sticker every time he does.
Sticker chart.
And put it on the sticker chart. And then if he gets, it was 5 stickers, but we're up to 10 stickers now because he was just churning through it before. So 10 stickers, and he gets like a little Matchbox car. So
there you go. Nice.
Going well. And his sister now, because she's seen him do it.
Hashtag parenting goals.
Like, she's kind of got it backwards, where she'll take her shirt off and then sit on the potty backwards. So she knows she needs to take one item of clothing off and she needs to sit, but it's just, she's a little bit backwards on that. So
that's
anyway,
hilarious.
People complain when we talk about our lives too much. So
they do, yes, and also we were going to keep this one tight, so we're gonna jump right into it.
We are
after we've talked about all this stuff, we're gonna jump into it. So we actually don't have a blog post to talk about Laravel 9.6, but it did get released. So Michael is going to jump through the changelog in GitHub, which is actually, by the way, folks, really comprehensive and really well done. So if you ever need to do that, check them out on GitHub. They're really great.
Yeah, Tatiana, I think, is responsible for keeping that.
I couldn't remember her first name. I knew it was, there it is. Yep, Tatiana.
Yep, so.
Blindaruk. Yep. From the Ukraine.
Great work to Tatiana. She's always keeping it up.
Absolutely.
In spite of everything going on, she still managed to keep on top of it. So good on you. But the first thing that we've got here in Laravel 9.6 now, as Jake said, we've got no post about this. So I'm just going to wing it, going through the changelog and the things that look interesting to me. So the first one here, there's two separate pull requests that all contribute to the same thing from Francisco Madeira. And these relate to the new schedule list command that was added in Laravel 9, which has been beautifully redesigned to look a lot like the route list. So the first of these 2 changes was to show closure locations on the schedule list. So previously, if you had a closure command in your task scheduler, it would just say some command. it wouldn't have the command. It wouldn't say any reference to it whatsoever. It would just say it was next due whenever it was next due, and it would show the cron expression. So this one will now say that there is a closure tied to this, and it will show you the line number inside your console kernel where it has been defined, or wherever it's been defined in the closure. In the task scheduler. So that's the first one. The second one is a similar change, which will show the job class name instead of just saying a closure that was defined in the file there. So this is like kind of the same as before, where we got to with the closure now shows the line number. This was previously showing the line number, whereas now it shows the actual job class name. So well done to Francisco for adding those two things in there. I think we spoke about this on the last episode. The schedule list that exists in the framework kind of came from the one that we had built for then Pygmy. And I think I'm just going to deprecate that now because this looks much better and it's part of the framework.
Agreed.
So it's code that I don't have to maintain anymore.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
Next up, we have from Lito is their GitHub name. This is adding a when table has column and when table doesn't have column on the schema builder. So previously, you would have had to do some wrangling if you wanted to check, like if schema doesn't have a column specific, and then you do a check in there, you could then do some actions based on the presence or lack thereof of a column name. This has all been condensed down into a simple closure-based scenario where you can do when table doesn't have column name or when table does, or when table has column, and then carry out some option or some functionality there inside of a closure. So another one of those quality of life improvements when we're just condensing and collapsing things. Next up, we've got one from Tim Martin. Tim has brought in the ability to make the throttle lock acquisition retry time configurable. So depending on context, this was previously set to 750 milliseconds and it was just a hard and fast 750 milliseconds. So now there's a new retry wait command, which will allow you to specify, it was retry wait, Taylor renamed it to sleep, just to be more consistent with other functionality in the framework. So you can now specify the wait time for waiting for a throttle lock to be acquired. So well done to Tim there. We've also had another nice little quality of life improvement from Yuri Boven. And this one previously, if you are adding jobs to a batch, if you just wanted to add a single job, you still had to pass that as an array of jobs. So whether it was one job or multiple jobs. And this is adding to already dispatched batches. So now you can just pass the new job instance rather than having to pass it as an array. So again, nice little quality of life touch up there. We've also got a new one from Max Gitting on mailables, which adds a new has subject, which is a complementary method to the existing has to, CC, BCC, and from methods, allowing for easier code readability in your tests. So thanks to Max for that one. On that same kind of vein, we've got from Italo, added a new is equal method to the file system or the file facade, which allows you to compare file hashes between two different files to determine if a file is, if it's the same or if it's, whether it exists and the hash is the same or if it's been changed. So this allows you to do an is equal check on that in one go. We've also got another one here. This has been added to the stringable. This is from Paul. And Paul added a PR to add a new line method to the stringable class, which instead of having to append /ends and chaining this over and over again, you've just got a nice new method for new line, and that will handle putting this all together for you. And that, I believe, will handle using the correct, it's using the PHP end of line constant. So if you're on Windows or if you're on Linux, it'll handle all of that correctly for you as well, which is super handy. Another Ukrainian gentleman, so
very nice.
Slava Ukraini, as they say these days.
I don't know what that means. Can you help me understand?
Yeah, Slava Ukraini is glory to Ukraine.
There we go. I'm not going to try and say it because I will probably say it wrong, but I am with you in spirit, my friend.
Excellent.
Okay. Hey, we're going to move on to news then, which is another release. The Laravel team released the next major version of the Laravel Valet package, version 3.0. And this version introduces the ability to run multiple versions of PHP in Valet side by side.
Love
Okay, so Matt Stauffer posted, there's a really exciting new feature, and that he's spent every evening for the last week reviewing and reworking a huge pull request on this. So to update, make sure you update your global Valet constraint to be greater than 3.0. Run Composer global update Laravel/Valet, run Valet install, and then you're done. That's it. That's the upgrade guide. That's all it is. It's 3 commands from your command line, and you're all set to go. So what does this give you? So previously with Valet, you could switch which version of PHP was being used by just doing Valet use PHP at 7.2, right? Or PHP at 8.1 or PHP at 8.0 or whatever. All right, so if you were in a site that needed to be using PHP 7.4 or whatever, you could do that. You could use that switch command. But now you can do this on a per site basis using the following commands. So you can say CD to the app, the particular location of the app in which you want to be serving with a particular version of PHP. And then you run Valet isolate and then the PHP version that you want to run that project in. So let's say I have a project called Michael that I want to run in a old version of PHP. So I'm going to CD to that Michael app, and I'm going to Valet isolate PHP at 7.4. Then I'm going to go to another site called Jake, and I'm going to say Valet isolate PHP at 8.0. So this also, another cool thing it does is it will also install the PHP version if it's not already installed.
Nice.
Which is pretty neat. So after isolating a site, you can see that when you go to serve it, it will serve it using the particular version of PHP that you isolated it to. So 7.4 for Michael, 8.1 for Jake, etc. All right, so another challenge you might run into with this is setting up how your CLI commands are going to run. Because if you have, like, for example, if your composer.json file has PHP 8.1 as a constraint in your composer file, and you're running PHP 7.4 in your command line, and you're trying to run composer install, like PHP whatever, or I guess, or PHP Artisan, whatever, right? It's going to complain if you're not using the correct version of PHP. So Matt has got a suggestion. Actually, Matt writing this one up? No, this is Paul. Paul has a suggestion on how you can get around that using some symlinks to the brew version of PHP in your path, and then you can get around it that way. Okay, so in addition to that, Nico Verbruggen, who has written PHP Monitor for Mac OS, which I use all the time, every single day, he also released PHP Monitor 5.2, and this has support for Valet 3, which makes managing those isolated versions a really big, or not a really big, let's see here, a really small hassle. It's not a hassle at all, in fact. It's a breeze, right?
Yeah.
Not at all. All right, so it adds support for Valet 3, and you can set a version per domain. To upgrade that, you just brew, upgrade, PHP Mon, right? PHP Monitor, PHP MON. So you can check out the changelog for that, for PHP Monitor 5.2. Again, really, really, really simple to get running on Valet 3. I'm definitely going to do this probably tonight before I go to sleep, even though it's 11 o'clock almost. Like I said, I use PHP Monitor all the time, but I actually pretty regularly have to switch between 7.5, one site remaining on 7.4, one. I have to upgrade it, and then the rest of them are on 8, except for one, which is on 8.1. So we moved everything to 8, and now we're moving everything to 8.1. So like I'm in this I'm in this change where I do need to be able to switch between these quite easily. And so being able to isolate those sites, and you can just say or run it with the default version, right? So if it's not isolated specifically, then it's just going to run 8.0 by default, right? And then I can say run 7.4 in this isolated site, run 8.1 in this isolated site, so I don't ever have to change my PHP version anymore, which will be pretty sweet.
Perfect.
Yep, really excited about that. Okay. Moving on. And also, you know what we did not shout out at the beginning of the show is Scout APM, who is sponsoring the show, which we're really, really excited about. Again, they are back as a sponsor. We're going to talk about them in a couple minutes. But, Michael, go ahead. On to packages, my friend.
Indeed. So first up here, we have using Laravel Dusk in order to test your JavaScript-based applications. So Laravel Husk is a thin, light scaffolded Laravel Dusk environment that allows you to test JavaScript applications with PHP using PEST without scaffolding an entire Laravel application. Once you've followed the very simple installation instructions, you can write Dusk feature tests like any other application using Dusk. You'll have a browser folder, and inside of that folder, you can run your Dusk test suite with the following commands. So you start your JavaScript application using npm run dev, and then you run php application pest : Dusk. There is an example of a test from a Nuxt application using Husk for end-to-end feature tests. This is something that I'm going to need to look at because my day job, we have an open API backend and we've got a like a Nuxt-based front end in separate repositories. And so whilst my main job at the moment is setting up tests for all of the backend stuff, we don't have any automation for the front end tests. And there's no real easy way when you have separate repositories for those two things to kind of like test the whole integration between them. So I'm definitely going to start this one to have a look at during the week to see if we can get something in place in future for this kind of stuff, because that'll make things very nice.
So is the concept that you would have here that you would run the Nuxt front end locally and then you'd run this up against it, your Husk application, or would you actually have like a QA or a staging server that you would run this against? I suppose you could really do either, right?
Yeah, I mean, I predominantly focus on the back end side of things in terms of working on the API and whatnot, and then we've got another team responsible for the front end. So it'd be good to have the integration between the two at some point, and if that means that it's just in the CI environment, then that, so be it. But sometimes, you're making back-end changes that you need to make sure that everything still works in the front end. So this will be very useful, especially in terms of like tying the two environments together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And actually, my brother works at a place where they don't have like any, I think the only thing they have is like very manual QA testing.
Yeah.
And so if you could like automate some of that, that'd be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
At least some of the basic stuff, like, hey, let's nail down how we test this every single time and what we expect, and then we can just worry about testing the new stuff really thoroughly, right? So, okay, moving on. So we've got a couple packages that we've talked about recently. One of them was, I think, env. It was like env or something. It monitors your env values, to check and make sure that you're not using any values in your configs that aren't in your env, or vice versa. Like you can purge out envs that aren't being used anywhere, that are in your env example, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like I'm finding a couple more of these packages that do similar things. So it's the Laravel Translations Checker package finds missing translations in the languages that you support. So using this package is really easy. All you have to do is run this CLI check, so PHP Artisan Translations check. And then what it'll do is it will look to see if you have any of your language files, like so if you had, I don't know, say en.js, right, is your Spanish strings. And it's going to tell you, oh, you're missing the translation key that is en.passwords.reset. And so you're going to have to go in and set that, right? And so this package supports looking for translations in both PHP and JSON translation files. The README has a really nice example of checking for missing translations that you can add into a GitHub action. So this is the other thing that I think is really cool too, is that you can run these things when you're pushing to production or just before you're pushing to production. So even if it's something that you didn't remember to run before you pushed your branch, it will go ahead and do it when it's in GitHub, right? So this is something you can do with Env as well. They have like a little pre-configured, here's a little GitHub action you can run for Env. We have the same thing here for this missing translations checker. And then I'm going to mention one more, which we were actually going to talk about at the end of the show. And I apologize that my dishwasher here is freaking out if you're hearing that. So this is this Laravel config validator. So this allows you to validate your config files and environment. This is similar, I think, in a similar vein to Env that we talked about, except for there's this idea of validation rule sets. And so anyway, I think it's, again, it's basically one of these tools where it's going to go through and it's going to make sure that all of your stuff is set up correctly and isn't missing any values so that your app isn't going to just crash in production because you forgot to set one config correctly, right? So it looks really, really comprehensive. And I think it's, again, one of those tools that could be run in your continuous integration environment that might be really helpful.
Yeah.
So pretty cool stuff. Okay. Back
Excellent.
to you.
And next up, we have Visit, which is a beautiful HTTP CLI tool for humans. It's a tool written by our friends over at Sparsy that allows you to see a HTTP response in a beautiful way. So it's like curl, but for humans. So with curl, you just get this giant glob of HTML if you make a request to an endpoint and it doesn't really give you anything. And by default, it's not going to follow redirects and things like that. Whereas with this tool from Sparsy called Visit, you'll get the thing that you actually care about, which is in the instance of a homepage, the HTML output. It will be color coded, syntax highlighted. It'll handle colorizing JSON output as well. It allows you to do filtering of JSON endpoints using dot notation, if you're familiar with that from a Laravel context. And you can even reach into your Laravel apps and report the number of queries and models retrieved to build up the response. So to give you, those debug bar kind of statistics rather. So it's very simple. You just use visit and then the URL, and off it goes and does what it needs to do. It'll tell you the duration, it'll tell you the response code, and the request that was carried out. So there's a whole bunch of different stuff that you can do there. It will even handle, that comes with a plugin, so you can use it directly with Artisan, and you can visit your endpoints directly within your application. It'll show exceptions and things like that. So very comprehensive tool, very useful if you're testing from the command line, JSON APIs and things like that without having to bring up Postman or Insomnia or whatever else and hit that in your testing tools of choice. So definitely check that out. Freek van der Herden, who created the package, wrote an in-depth blog post about the package that has more details. So you can check that out. We'll have links to all of these things in the show notes.
Awesome. Coming up next, we've been talking about Filament a little bit here, which is a tall stack admin panel. And so here we've got a table builder, which is a tall stack table component. And you can use this table component as a standalone package, but it's also included in the Filament admin panel. So using the packages has table interface and interacts with tables trait. You can quickly add or build a table backed by an eloquent query that you define. So not necessarily just an eloquent model, right? But we're talking an eloquent query. So then you say just get table query, you specify what the query should be, and then you have a render, which specifies the view that's going to get rendered there. And it has customizable pagination, record searching with Laravel Scout, clickable rows, empty state. You can store table state in the query string. So that's nice. You can copy that, share that with somebody, and they'll get exactly where you were at, right? Instead of having to manually kind of try and set the same filters that you had before. It's got table column types like text columns, image columns, Boolean columns, etc. Table filters, actions, and bulk actions. So if you want to learn more about that one, you can check that out in the show notes. If you happen to be using Filament, I'm sure this is a welcome addition for those of you who are in that world. I've still yet to try out Filament. I haven't tried it out. Read a lot about it, seen a lot about it. I'm a Nova man right now, but I would love to try this one out, and eventually I probably will.
Speaking just quickly on Nova, the new version of that, version 4, is due to drop this week, probably around the time that this recording comes out. So keep your eyes on that.
Pretty exciting. Absolutely.
From memory, if you had purchased a license since, I think, the Black Friday sales last year or the Cyber Monday sales last year, I think you'll be eligible for a version 4 upgrade. So definitely keep your ear to the ground if you've been waiting on a new version of Nova. That'll be out around the time of this recording coming out.
Very cool.
And now, as you mentioned, our friends at Scout APM are back. Scout APM is application performance monitoring designed to help PHP developers quickly find and fix performance issues without having to deal with the headaches or overhead of enterprise platform feature bloat. With a developer-centric UI and tracing logic that ties bottlenecks to source code, Scout helps you quickly pinpoint and resolve performance abnormalities like N+1 queries, slow database queries, and memory bloat. This helps you spend less time debugging and more time building your applications. And with real-time alerting and weekly digest emails, you can rest easier knowing that Scout's on watch to help you resolve performance issues before your customers ever see them. You can give Scout a try today with a free 14-day trial and experience firsthand why PHP developers the world over call Scout their best friend. And for Laravel News listeners, Scout will donate $5 to the open source project of your choice when you deploy your app using Scout APM. You can learn more at scoutapm.com/Laravel News. Thanks to Scout.
Thank you, Scout. Appreciate it. We've got another package here, which is the Laravel Facebook Graph API. So this is by Joel Butcher. And this is a Laravel integration for the Graph PHP 8 SDK project. It makes it easy to integrate the PHP SDK, which is provided by the same author, Joel Butcher, and Facebook login into your Laravel project. So after you install the package and configure your app, you can use the provided Facebook facade to access the Facebook API. So all you have to do is call Facebook : get user, pass in some params, and there's some included code in here where you're passing in, your ID secret, just like you normally would do. You're going to authenticate with this, and then you're going to ask for some data, and you're going to get it back. And so it's available for any of you who happen to be interacting with Facebook in that way. This is going to abstract some of the more messy bits for you, and it's a really, really nice, clean API. So thanks, Joel Butcher, for that.
Excellent. Next up, we have the Given When Then plugin for Pest. This is a plugin that brings behavioral style testing to Pest. GWT is a simple API that allows you to structure your test focused on the behavior. Given When Then separation makes the test easier to understand at a glance. Behavior-driven testing using GWT can help clarify 3 distinct steps while testing code, which includes 1, arranging the application state, which is the given method. 2 is the act phase, and the act phase, which is when, and 3, the outcome phase, which is then, which asserts the expected outcome of the previous steps. The repo includes a number of examples for GWT-style tests for Pest to help you get started, and you can learn more about the package and get full installation instructions. We'll have that all in the show notes. I think this is exceptionally useful for those sort of shorter tests, the things that are very high level that you're trying to bring in at the start just to sort of get some test coverage into your application before you start drilling down into unit tests and more comprehensive feature tests and things like that. It allows you to kind of, at a very high level in that kind of Gherkin or BDD type syntax to sort of say like given when then and around your scenarios. So it just makes it really easy to test those things out in just like little one-liners using short closures in PHP. I mean, you can use larger assertion methods and things like that, but I think to get you started with testing and to get those quick wins and some assurance in sort of the functioning of your application, this is really cool.
I love that. It feels like Pest has opened up a whole new set of problems to solve, right? Because what I feel like we've seen a lot of around the whole Pest community there is people just being really concerned about different ways to cleanly write the tests that you want, right? So it's less about like, let's just get the tests written and make sure things are working, and more about let's make sure that the person coming behind us can actually read the tests that we're writing. You know what I mean? And so it's just it's really cool to see that there's so much work being put into making these tests really, really great, and not just like a chore that you have to do, but something that can actually even be enjoyable.
Yeah.
I don't think people would be spending as much time doing all these. I mean, how many plugins are there for Pest? There's tons of them, right?
It's like
it's just like a whole new world. Whereas previous to this, it was only really like framework stuff that was hacking on test things, right? So Pest is just a whole brand new thing. It's pretty cool. Awesome. Okay, moving on. We have got a package called Splat, which is a utility by Chris Kankowicz. Kankewicz. How do you know that? How do you do that stuff?
I mean, that's a Polish name, so that one's pretty easy.
It's Polish?
For me, yeah.
Krzyzewski was the one that I always grew up with. I had a buddy, Tyler. This is a shout out to you, buddy. Tyler Krzyzewski. Krzeszewski.
I mean, you can spell it, which is half the battle.
Yeah, and then there's Novacek, Nowaczyk. I remember it because I like took the time to memorize them because I was like, they're such odd spelled names. I just wanted I don't know. Anyway, those are two of my good buddies that had really, really crazy last names. But yeah, you just read that one, Kankewicz. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Holy
Kankewicz.
Crap. Never happening. Anyway, Chris Kankewicz, I'm glad one of us knows how to say your name. Great job. Okay, so this provides glob-like file and pattern matching. So the pattern one is what we're going to start with. So with this, what it does is it basically allows you to say, and I feel like I've seen a couple little things like this before, but it allows you to say, here's what I'm looking for. I'm going to make a pattern like this, and then basically arrow to regex, right? And then just write the regex for me, right? So you're going to say something like pattern, : make foo, arrow to regex. And it's going to give you a pattern that would match, I want to see foo in this, right? Or you can say pattern make foo /bar.txt to regex. And that will give you the regex for that. Or you could say file dot and then in brackets YML or YAML to regex, and it's going to give you what that's going to look like, right? So basically, you can say, I am going to specify a particular pattern, and then I want you to give me the regex that's going to be represented by that. Now, the reason why we start with that is because that is, I believe, what's going to be getting used under the hood when we're using this next portion, which is glob. So I don't know where I learned about glob before. Is there like a I think, isn't there something in PHP just called glob, which will navigate through a file tree, right?
Yeah.
And you can just specify.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
this
wildcard
exact
thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, right, exactly. So a glob is something like, how you do sometimes if you're searching through your file system on your Mac or your Windows, you say like star.txt or something like that, right? Well, this is sort of that. So you can say glob in, and you can say star.txt, and then you can specify as the second argument a file path. Now, this requires or returns a Symfony Finder component, which I believe is what Laravel uses behind its file system facade.
Yeah,
is Symfony's Finder component. So this is not storage, right? This is not fly system. This is just local storage that we're talking about here, right? So we can say glob match start, glob match end, and you can even specify things like I want to go in and do */star.txt, right? So any directory, any subdirectory.txt, et cetera, et cetera. So you can do all sorts of different crazy pattern matches on that, and it'll basically filter and reject arrays of file names based on what pattern you give it and what you pass as the path. I used to use this all the time, and this was something I really missed when we switched to starting to use storage everywhere, because we didn't want to have our files all stored locally, because you migrate servers or a server goes down and your storage is stuck on that server. You have to get it all off, and so now we only use storage everywhere instead. But this is one of those things that I really missed, and so anyway, here it is in a brand new package for you to utilize and consume to your heart's content. Perfect. So thank you very much, Chris Kinkevich.
Speaking of packages and moving into the warm embrace of the community section, the first one we have here is a package called Convoy. It's from @Legodian on GitHub. This package allows you to declare routes inside of your full-page Laravel Livewire components. All you have to do is create a route method inside of your Livewire components, which returns a Laravel route. The package will automatically detect the route. And the package also works perfectly alongside traditional Laravel route files and even allows you to cache them. That's what it is. So you can, as I said, create a route method inside of your full-page Livewire component that uses all of the familiar get, name, middleware, all of those methods that you know and love, and it allows you to co-locate that inside of your Livewire components. We've spoken previously about how I feel about kind of littering these things in quotes across your application. So it may work for you, it might not work for you, but it's definitely another option if that is something that is of interest to you.
It is. It's just interesting. It's like one of these, and I brought it in because I love the idea of some of these experiments. You never know where these sort of things are going to end up, right? I mean, this is what Livewire started out as, right? Yeah. Caleb Porzio just like, hey, I'm going to try something crazy here. Like I'm going to try this like Livewire thing, or same thing with Alpine. I'm just going to try something crazy here. Like, and that's how these projects typically start out. It's just like, I have this crazy idea. I have no idea if it's going to work out, but this scratches my own itch. And so I'm going to try it. Right. And so I love these sorts of like experiments, and I love that Laravel is flexible enough to allow you to do these things, right? It's like literally your world is your sandbox here. Right. And so it's cool because inside this component, you just have a route method, and then you can specify your routes right inside there. And I'm guessing what this package does, is it scans any of your components for methods, or sorry, for your, it scans your Livewire components for anything that has a method of route, right? And then chucks them into your route file, obviously, right? So that's pretty cool. So along with this, we've got Lucid, which is another package by the same author. And this allows you to declare database migrations and factory definitions inside of your Laravel models. Again, Michael, I'm with you on this one. Like, would I do this myself? I would not, but it's interesting, right? So it's co-locating the code that belongs. It's co-locating the code with the model in any case, right? I don't know if I want to say it belongs there, but like I will say too that I will sometimes flip between my migrations and my model to kind of see what fields are there, what type they are, et cetera, right? And so if you just had your migrations straight inside of your model, I mean, that might be interesting. There's some interesting things there. And then the definitions as well, the definitions for your factories. So I don't know. It's just interesting, right? I mean, what if you made it as like a trait then or something? I don't know. I don't know. It's just interesting. So take it for what it's worth. Use it if you'd want to. But I just wanted to feature them because I thought that was some pretty cool stuff. So Lagodian,
yeah.
Lagodian. Thanks, Lagodian. Cool stuff. Okay. We talked about the config validator a little bit, so we can move on from that one.
Yeah, the next one, Lucid, is the
name. It's more of a tutorial.
No. Did you just talk about Lucid?
I did just talk about Lucid. Yep. Same. I said it's kind of going on along that same lines. Same author.
I'm in a world of my own. So yes, this tutorial, the last thing that we've got here to talk about is how to set up and scale the perfect WebSocket server for your Laravel project. So this is written by Simon Ellenson. It's a big post. It's about 15 minutes to read. It's on the About You Tech blog, and this goes into whether you want to push instead of polling, how to find the right WebSocket backend for Laravel. It talks about the different options, the scalability, the licensing, the technology behind each of them, using Laravel's Echo Server or Sockety or Laravel WebSockets, and how to get it set up and running in all of these things. So I won't go into too much detail, but if we spoke about WebSockets a bit in the previous episode, so definitely if you're looking at some different options there and you're not really sure what you want to use and how to go about it, this is a pretty comprehensive post that goes into all of those details. So definitely check this one out from friends of the show at About You.
Absolutely. Okay, folks. Well, hey, that wraps us up. This was episode 164. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. You can find show notes for this episode at podcast.laravel-news.com/164. If you liked the show, please rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be much appreciated. Hit us up on Twitter at Michael Dorinda, at Jacob Bennett, or at Laravel News. Thanks again to our sponsors, Scout APM. Check them out if you have not done so. Really, really great stuff. ScoutAPM.com/Laravel News. Okay, folks, till next time, have a wonderful one, and we'll see you next week. 2 weeks. Bye. 2 weeks. A fortnight. Bye.
Bye.